Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
And hello again, everybody. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVOA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Welcome in to TITV, presented, as you heard, by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Visit Tuscaloosa. Well, we have reached college football's postseason, and for 4 teams, it's an opportunity to play for a national championship. And yesterday, after a couple of weeks, not talking to local media during recruiting and a lot of visits, Nick Saban met with the media after practice. Rodney, and I have to tell you, you could listen about 30 seconds until he was dialed in. He was all business on Monday. After a 2-week break following the SEC championship game victory, Alabama back to work on Saturday, and they've practiced every day since, as they'll practice right up until Christmas and have a little bit of a break, and then they'll travel out to Pasadena on the 26th of December and finish out preparations for the Rose Bowl out there in California. Alabama, of course, is number 4. They'll face number 1 Michigan in the CFP semifinal at the Rose Bowl New Year's Day. After 13 games in 14 weeks, head coach Nick Saban says having that much time off is an adjustment for the players. When they go back on the practice field, a lot of fundamentals. They work with some of the younger players, including 11 new players coming in that are actually signing for the 2024 class, but can go through practice. We don't know about Jace McClellan's status yet. Coach Saban said it's unclear. He did say, though, that Kool-Aid McKinstry has cleared concussion protocol. He's back at practice and ready to go. All right, Rodney, they're back on the field for the stretch run. Hopefully 2 games left, but you have to get past Michigan first. Just kind of your vibe on this team as they get ready for the CFP semifinal at the Rose Bowl.
Well, I think, Gary, obviously when they've been off a few weeks, there's a little bit of rust, but everything I've heard from a few different sources that have been around the practices is that they've been really spirited in terms of the attitude and all of those things. I think this team, obviously, the progress that they've made, they don't really take anything for granted, from where they've come from. I mean, I think it's been a real journey for this football team and the way they've matured, the way they developed, and they see an opportunity here for a national championship, and I think the attitude has been really, really good.
Yeah, of course, the media's kind of moved on from the sign-stealing issue with Michigan, but Coach Saban was asked about it yesterday and said they'll do what they always do. They're nothing special. They change signs from week to week. They self-scout and all of that, but so he's not, playing into that at all.
Yeah, he was actually asked about that. He kind of dodged the question. Said, look, we're trying to focus on getting the best execution that we can and being ready for the game.
But, Rodney, you're always looking for an edge, and Alabama just might have one because it's time now for Coach Talk. And last week, Alabama hired former Michigan linebackers coach George Helow. Now, Helow coached for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan in 21 and 22. Of course, we'll have more on him in a moment, but Coach Saban was asked about Coach Helow's role long term. Will he move in for Coleman Hutzler, who's leaving after the season to take the Mississippi State defensive coordinator job? Coach Saban said, hey, man, we're not looking that far ahead.
Look, we're not concerned about any of that stuff right now. We got a game coming up. Coleman Hutzler is here. He's finishing the season. I don't have time right now to go through the due diligence of hiring anybody or even be concerned about that. We spent 2 weeks really on the road recruiting. So somebody to do a little extra work, being able to give us a good scouting report of what we need to know, and just to add, sort of a special assistant to me, whatever you want to call it, when I come off the road, be able to get me up to speed on what's happening.
All right, Rodney, Coach Helow hit the ground running. Coach Saban said another benefit of hiring him, he says he kind of does this every year, is when they come out of the SEC championship game, they're on the road recruiting for 2 weeks. He wants somebody here to be doing some administrative work. Coach Helow, as we said, 21-22 at Michigan. Now, he started his coaching career really in 2012 under Kirby Smart and Nick Saban as a defensive graduate assistant analyst type of guy. But he brings a lot of experience, and let's be honest, there's no doubt they're going to pick his brain some in regards to Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Alabama's brought in coaches. I remember a few years ago, obviously, when they played Texas for the national championship, 2009, they brought in coaches from Oklahoma to help them with the preparation. I think certainly his knowledge, George Helow's knowledge, certainly be helpful. But also, I think, Gary, his experience here, understanding the program, the things that they do here will obviously be very, very helpful, too.
And at the end of the day, though, Nick Saban does not deviate from his system, his process. Yeah, they'll talk to Helow, they'll try to get some intel, but the bottom line is he believes how you prepare. Preparation leads to performance, and he believes in how you prepare and focusing on what you can do to play the best game that you can play. That really never changes for Nick Saban, whether it's a season opener, a non-conference game, an SEC rivalry game, a SEC championship game, Rodney. It's still kind of the same thing for him in regards to how he's going to prepare to play.
Yeah.
Can we come back to Rodney here?
Hi. I'm with you, Gary. Again, it is. And I think that's the thing about Nick Saban. It's the consistency. I think these players know what to expect, when to expect it. All of these things, it's a routine of sorts in terms of the preparation that I think really helps them as they move into as he said, the second season.
Yeah.
The playoffs.
Of course, next week we'll have much more on the actual game matchup itself. But still to come on Tider Insider Television tonight, in addition to preparing for the CFP semifinal at the Rose Bowl, you're dealing with the portal, you're dealing with roster management, and you're dealing with recruiting. Alabama looking to close strong ahead of the early signing period in December, which begins tomorrow. We'll have the latest commitments for the Crimson Tide and who you might want to watch for on Commitment Watch. Plus, find out what Tider Insider expects to see tomorrow in terms of the guys putting the signatures on the dotted line. All that, plus we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can reach us at the email address on your screen, TITV@WVUA23.com. We'll be right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. Well, sometimes your best recruiting is keeping the players that you already have, like Elijah Pritchett. He went into the portal, and less than 24 hours later, number 57 had a change of heart as he did an about-face and said he will remain at Alabama. Transferring is not in my best interest. I apologize for any and all conveniences. I'm 100% locked in. Roll Tide, he said. Pritchett told Hayes Fawcett of On3 that he was going to the portal. Then the next day he had that statement. So, Rodney, listen, this is a big deal to me because Elijah Pritchett's just in his second year. He battled for the left tackle starting job, lost it to Caden Proctor, but played some with the possibility and probably the probability that right tackle J.C. Latham is going to go into the draft. Elijah Pritchett's a prime candidate to start at right tackle. This is a kid that's athletic. He's tall, 6'6", about 312, 315 pounds. He's got some experience. I don't know who got to him and made him think the portal was a good idea, but obviously Alabama kind of enlightened him a little bit. Nick Saban, I think, must have told him, listen, this is what's in front of you here, right here at Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, and he's versatile. I mean, he can play a lot of spots. You talked about right tackle potentially next year. I mean, obviously he was kind of considered a co-starter at the beginning of the year. He was number one in the spring, but, obviously Caden Proctor took that over. But, no, you're right. But Gary, look, I think this is what we've talked about. You're going to have to defend protect your roster. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, we talked here a few years ago about you're going to almost have to hire a retention staff.
Yeah. Because
you got teams attacking when you've got this much talent, especially. So it's out of control. Something needs to be done.
Trying to keep players out of the portal, trying to get key players from the portal, and then you've got the national signing period for December, as we said, starts tomorrow, 3-day period through Friday. And Alabama has hit the portal for the first time this year, or I should say someone in the portal has chosen Alabama. Former Texas A&M defensive lineman L.T. Overton has announced his commitment to the Crimson Tide. The 6'3", 273-pound Overton was once regarded as the number one prospect overall in the 2023 class, and before reclassifying to 2022 and signing with the Aggies. He visited Tuscaloosa this past weekend before making his decision. LT spent more than 10 years of his life right here in Tuscaloosa, as both his parents worked for the University of Alabama at one time. Overton is the first incoming transfer for Alabama this offseason. And, Rodney, you have to be honest, this is a guy that's got 2 years' experience in the SEC. His first year, he was dynamic, not as productive this past season, but he's going to come in here as a guy that's going to be ready to go and very athletic, can play both inside and outside on the defensive line.
Yeah, okay, and you're right. And I think you made a great point about his living here for 10 years. I think he understands the program, and obviously both of his parents worked here at UA, so he has a great understanding of that. He's a really fantastic prospect. When he was coming out, he was going to be the number one player in the 2023 class. I'm talking about number one nationally. He reclassified to a year earlier in 2022, went to Texas A&M. So he's really only age-wise would be a true freshman this year. So he's a guy that's got a lot of potential. Really look forward to seeing what he can do in terms of adding some depth and possibly pushing for a starting spot on that defensive front.
Yeah, a lot of those top recruiting class players for A&M with Jimbo Fisher out and a lot of uncertainty there as to where they're headed with Mike Elko. A lot of those guys have hit the portal. Now Evan Stewart, the wide receiver, who Alabama also recruited heavily out of high school, is in the portal. And, you know, Alabama uses the portal selectively, but this is another young man from A&M that the Crimson Tide will have some interest in.
You know, everybody will. I really thought Evan Stewart was a guy that was maybe a Devontae Smith level type player coming out of high school, out of the state of Texas. And you mentioned, yeah, he really did give Alabama serious consideration. It's going to be interesting. You know, he's going to be heavily recruited, but he's a guy that you remember 2 years ago when he came here as a freshman, he made some incredible plays.
Yeah, he did.
He kept Texas A&M in the game, really. But, yeah, keep an eye on Evan Stewart. It's going to be really interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, so portal goings on, and also, as I said, the national signing period for December begins tomorrow. On Sunday night, Kansas City four-star outside linebacker Ja'Shawn Ross told Rodney that he was leaning to Alabama over Ole Miss, Kansas State, and others. Then yesterday afternoon, he made it official, committing to the Crimson Tide. 6'4", 225-pound edge rusher, outside linebacker, defensive end. I don't know what all you call these guys now, but he can get after the quarterback. That's something Alabama's looking for. He's going to sign tomorrow afternoon after school, and Rodney, he becomes number 22 in terms of commitments for the class of 2024. And this is a guy, like we said, that can get after the QB.
He can. He's got an incredible first step. He's got a frame to add weight, get bigger. He's a really intelligent kid. I had a great conversation with him Sunday night after he left here on an unofficial visit. But you can see him, Gary. I mean, he can really get after quarterback. I tell you what. He's 6'4", he's 225 pounds. You see his frame there. You ought to see him as a receiver. He's very athletic, catches the ball extremely well. What I mean by that is he's a guy that, you know what, if he didn't work out, and he's going to work out at outside linebacker, but he does have the versatility that he could play an H-back position.
And, Rodney, speaking of edge rushers or defensive linemen, what's the latest on Edric Houston of Buford, Georgia, the Ohio State commit, but giving Alabama serious consideration about flipping?
Yeah, you know, he's been committed to Ohio State since the summer. He's a really big fan of their defensive line coach, Larry Johnson. There's been some rumor that maybe Larry Johnson might be about ready to hang it up. He's in his early 70s. That could be a factor in terms of why Edric Houston made that visit here. He also visited Clemson late last week. You know, Gary, I like to say we'll just have to let it play out. And I think that's really what it is with Edric Houston. He may have already made his decision, but he's not going to announce it. Even though he's been committed to Ohio State, he's not going to announce the final decision till tomorrow.
This Alabama class is in the running for top class for 2024, but running back's a position they want to add to. One, maybe two running backs. Kevin Riley, the Miami commit from Tuscaloosa County High, is a possibility, as is Jaden Baugh, a player that decommitted from Arkansas to Decatur, Georgia, and Daniel Hill out of Meridian. All three of those young men Alabama's still talking, well, not talking to now because it's a dead period, but, you know, trying to line up possibly for commitments.
Yeah, and they can stay in contact, but you're right, they can't have the face-to-face, in-person contact. But, yeah, you look at Kevin Riley, the local kid here. I think he's a really, you know, talented kid. He's a guy, actually, I talked to some people that at various schools around the Birmingham area who called games that County High was involved in, just to get a different perspective of him. They said, look, he's really athletic. He's a guy that catches the ball extremely well. So I would keep an eye on Kevin Riley tomorrow. You said the longtime Miami commitment. There's Jaden Baugh, out of the state of Georgia that's been committed to Arkansas. He decommitted. Alabama, Florida's in there real heavily. And you mentioned Daniel Hill. I think he probably ends up at South Carolina. Some people, though, Gary, even speculating maybe Mississippi State might pull him off.
Yeah, just don't get a good vibe with him with Alabama. But the Tide is going to add one, maybe two running backs. So tomorrow, as always, is going to be a big day. And Rodney will keep you posted, of course, at TiderInsider.com. All right, still to come, the road or playing away from home has been unkind for Alabama men's basketball lately. We'll recap the trip to Creighton and look ahead to the game tonight against Arizona, or tomorrow night against Arizona. Plus, we will be getting your phone calls. And I can tell you this, folks, phone lines are wide open. That's very, very rare. But if you call in right now at 205-348-WVUA, that's 348-9882, you can get through. We can get you on, whether it's a recruiting question, a question about Michigan, whatever it may be, basketball. We'll take your phone calls when we come back to Tider Insider TV. So get to dialing or pushing those buttons and get through. We'll be right back after this. Well, the road and the iron was unkind to Alabama this past Saturday night in Omaha against number 8 Creighton. Number 8 at the time, Alabama fell 85-82. The Tide had lost the week before to number 4 Purdue, 92-86 in Toronto. Bama just 4 of 22 from 3, But they had a chance here. Look at this. This ball goes halfway. It went halfway down in the cylinder, man, and spun out. That's how close they were to forcing overtime. Does not get any easier. Alabama is on the road tomorrow night. They'll play in Phoenix, not in Tucson, but in Phoenix. Look how close that came to going in against number 4 Arizona, who was number 1 until Purdue beat them this past weekend. So Alabama's schedule is brutally tough, but man, you'd like to win some of these games. Rodney, if you could get one tomorrow night, it would be huge. Alabama's got a good team, but they do have 4 losses. All of them to good teams: Ohio State, Clemson, Purdue, and as I said, Creighton. But tomorrow night would be a huge win if they could get it out in Phoenix against Arizona.
Yeah, it would. Again, it's a young team. I mean, in terms of they've only been together here, not in terms of the new players that they've brought in. And Gary, it's a long season. I think as they develop, it's going to be really interesting to see how this team progresses. And
make note, tomorrow night is a late tip here in the Alabama Central Time Zone. 10 o'clock tomorrow night, the tip against the Wildcats on ESPN. All right, it's time to get out on the phone lines. We still have phone lines open, I'm told, too, 205-348-WVUA. But Bill in Birmingham found his way through, and he leads us off tonight. Hey, Bill. Bill, you with us? All right.
Yes, sir. Yes,
yeah,
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Okay, I had my phone cut off just for a second. Hey, listen, how we stacking up against Michigan? Roll Tide.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I'll let Rodney chime in with most of the analysis here. But I will tell you this. I think Alabama overall, and I know Michigan's number 1 and they're unbeaten and they're really, really good. I think Alabama's a more talented football team. I just think physically, roster-wise, they're more talented. But this Michigan team is good. Their defense is salty. I mean, they're number 1 in scoring defense. They're number 1 in defensive touchdowns scored. I think they're number 2 in total defense, Rodney. So Alabama's offense, I think, that's going to be, to me, the game. Can Alabama move the football consistently against Michigan? I think Michigan's offense is going to be held in check to some degree by Alabama's defense. So Alabama's offense, can they move the ball against the Michigan defense has been really stout all year?
Yeah, I think, too, Gary, Alabama needs to stop the run. If they can stop the run and make J.J. McCarthy into a passer, I think he's a really talented kid. I think he's got a great arm. He's made some big-time throws. It's been a little bit inconsistent. They say there's kind of some scuttlebutt that maybe his struggles the second half of the season have been due to some injury. I don't know if that's been reported in terms of officially by Michigan, by Jim Harbaugh, but there's been some talk that maybe he's been a little bit beat up in that regard. But I agree with you. I think Alabama has to stop the run, slow down the run, make him a passer. And you know what? You talk about the Michigan defense. Here's the one thing. I do think they're really good, Gary, but at the same time, I'm not really convinced they played a bunch of great offenses either.
Well, they haven't. And they haven't faced anybody like Jalen Milroe, that's for sure. All right, let's get to Putty over in Alabaster. Hey, Putty.
Hey, Gary. Hey, Rodney. Hope y'all both are doing good.
Thank you.
Y'all always know a lot more than you have time to say, so I would like to know a couple of kids that we're recruiting that y'all are super excited about, and Merry Christmas to both of you.
All right, Rodney, thank you, Putty. Take that one. A couple kids are recruiting that you're really excited about.
I assume that he means not committed.
Yeah,
I don't know.
would say that, yeah.
Okay, well, look, I would. If you look at it, I love linemen. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think you have to win linemen. I think everybody knows you need defensive linemen. And I think if Alabama could somehow pull off Edric Houston out of the state of Georgia, Beaufort, Georgia, I think that would be a major coup down the stretch. Gary, give Alabama 4 defensive linemen. If you include L.T. Overton, be a really good class. You got Jeremiah Beeman out of Birmingham, so a really quality player. Funga out of Phoenix City is a really good player. And if you could pull off Houston tomorrow, I think that would be a major coup for this recruiting class.
All right, thanks for the phone calls. We'll be back with our email question of the day next. Welcome back to TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. It's time to get to our email question of the day, brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. Here it is, Rod. And the question is, will Jace McClellan play against Michigan? That's from Lawrence in Dallas, Texas. Rodney, we don't know right now, do we?
I wish he could. I really do, for Jace. But, if I had to guess, and it'd be only a guess, I would think probably not. I lean towards not. But Nick Saban did say that he's close to doing dry land running, and they would continue to evaluate it next week.
Yeah, hopefully he can go. Although they're good at running back without him, better with him, that is for sure. All right, we're going to try to squeeze a phone call in, and it's Greg and Brewer. Is that right? Mark and Brewer. Where's Brewer at, Mark? I've never heard of Brewer, Alabama.
No, it's Mark Brewer from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. I told him there was no Brewer, Alabama. Sorry, Mark in Tuscaloosa.
No.
Well, what you got going?
Yes, sir. The new hire away from Michigan. What can that guy bring to the table, and what do y'all think he could do for us for the edge of the game?
Rodney?
Give us the inside track.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he knows a little bit about Michigan on both sides of the ball. You know, I think that intel certainly could be very helpful. And again, this is not something that is new. We mentioned that a little bit earlier in the show is, you know, Nick Saban has brought in guys with information and intel in terms of their understanding, knowledge of the opponent going into the playoff game. I remember, again, like I said, Texas, they brought in one of the Stoops brothers. I don't know, Bob might have even showed up. But I know that when Alabama played Texas in 2009, they had some Oklahoma coaches here. It made the news and all of those types of things. So this really isn't new. It's just an opportunity to get someone in that has that knowledge. And again, he can help with this program. There's speculation that he may replace Coleman Hutzler when Hutzler goes to Mississippi State.
That is out there.
We don't know that, but that's out there.
All right, real quickly, we'll get to an email question before we wrap up the segment. And it is from Bryce in Florence. How many players will Alabama take from the portal? That's a good question. Again, Rodney, I don't know if we know the answer.
Yeah, and again, I think it depends on who's in the portal. Mm-hmm. Who is it that you think can come in and contribute, help your team immediately? I think, you know, again, a guy like Evan Stewart jumps in today. Well, obviously, you wouldn't turn down a player like that, of that magnitude. So, you know, I think what are they generally 4, 5, 6, Gary? I could see that again and possibly even more.
All right. Thanks for the phone calls and emails. We'll be back to wrap up TITV right after this. And we're back here on TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. This past Sunday, Alabama women's basketball improved to 11-2 to start the season. They got 18 points from Sarah Ashley Barker as they beat Louisiana at Monroe 70-54 inside Coleman Coliseum, and off to a great start for Alabama women basketball. All right, that is going to wrap it up for the show. A reminder, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 on WVUA 23 or anytime at TiderInsider.com. Will Rodney have it posted? And also at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you with shots of Alabama football players graduating on Saturday. 15 Crimson Tide players graduated, and that's always awesome. At the end of the day, that's still what it's all about. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.